So imagine the world in a time where there are no people, there are forests everywhere, there are animals, there are dinosaurs. The world is a very simple place. Take a second to think about that in your mind. Now imagine that happened in this day and age, except all the people are turned to stone. And that's where it brings us to what we're going to be talking about today in my series called Why It's Dope. And today we're going to be talking about Dr. Stone. So Dr. Stone is basically a story about a scientist who loves science so much that he's going to take humanity from where it is now in the prehistoric Stone Age, literally, all the way to the future and beyond. Now, what does that even mean if you've never even seen the show? There's actually a lot of things in it. So a short recap of the series basically is one day these kids are chilling in school. We have this main character, Clunkhead, or you'll know him when you see him. We have Senku, because I really like him, so I'm going to remember his name throughout this whole review. And we're going to talk about love interest. Oh, I really don't remember her name. She had a nice name too. And that it basically starts out with him trying to approach her, saying that he wants to marry her or whatever. He's had all these feelings, and he's been building up to ask her. And Senku is his friend, and he's really, really, really smart. And basically that day, a green wave sweeps over the whole place, and everyone gets turned to stone, and we wake up like thousands of years in the future, and our main character is basically the one who comes back and is trying to bring humanity from the Stone Age, because everyone has been turned into stone, back into the now age, if that even makes sense. I think that's a basic synopsis of it. The characters in this show, I think most of the characters are cool. We have a great antagonist and protagonist. So the protagonist is Senku, who is the science-loving geek who loves science to no end, and he's very infectious with it. Like, he has like a true divine love for something, and when you meet someone like that, meet someone who truly loves something, you can get a little bit infected too, because it's so genuine that you just can't help but fall for it as well. And then later we meet our antagonist, which is Tsukasa. I remembered another name, so give me some points for that down in the comment section or down in the like section. I remembered his name, and basically he the strongest motherfucker alive. By no other standard other than there's no other adult alive who could whip his ass, I guess, because he's put as like the strongest person. And to prove how strong he is, this motherfucker kills a lion. So if that didn't already make you want to watch the show, I don't know what's gonna make you watch the show. But he basically kills a lion and is protested to be the strongest high schooler person in the world. And yeah, so basically they're friends for a little bit because they have like this little like cohabitative relationship where he hunts and gathers and they do all the science stuff. So it's good to a point. However, there comes like a clash of heads where we find out that Tsukasa is not the person that he tends to be, and that he wants to kill all of humanity. All right, I'm okay. Yeah. Sorry. So he wants to end all of adult humanity because he believes that when all adults come back to the earth, they're going to destroy it and want to do the same thing that they did before, which don't blame him. I mean, you know, history says a lot, and that says a lot about history, you know. He makes a compelling argument for why they shouldn't. Senku just wants science and to bring everybody back, so they clash heads, they fight, and then we get through to the rest of the story. There are many other characters, especially in the second half of the anime, because I'm not even going to talk about the manga, because I didn't read that shit, and I probably won't, because I really like the anime, even though a lot of people didn't. So there are many, many characters that you will get to see later in the show. I'm going to just say some of them off the bat. There's cute Kohaku, there's Stone Age Senku, I forget his name too. Oh my gosh, there's so many characters. There's a glass blowing man, there's silver and gold dude, there's stereotypical blonde haired jerk asshole dude, and there's a whole village, and it gets really sentimental towards like one of the parts later in it. But it's interesting like how there was one group of people who survived this whole thing that happened, which I think is the biggest overarching mystery of the whole thing in general. Thinking about like, how did this even start and where did it even come from is like a nice, like, I guess B plot you would call it, because it's not something that's really touched upon, but it's like, it's almost like plucked at very lightly in times, where we can see flashbacks to some things that are talked about it, but it's just like there's one piece to the puzzle and maybe that other piece of the puzzle will be talked about again, and just wondering why it even happened in the first place is amazing. I mean, even halfway through, when you get to a certain part of the story, there's going to be like a flashback to why this group of people exists, and that flashback is fucking amazing. It kind of reminds me of, if you've ever watched the Avatar, The Last Airbender, or Legend of Korra, if you ever watched Legend of Korra, there's this one part where it's just a flashback and all of it just pieces together all of the parts of the story that make sense to what we have now. And I find that to be amazing that they did that and they linked the past to the future, even though it was thousands of years. And it brings up just like okay, fuck it. So, spoilers. Midway through the arc, he meets this village. This village is weird because how could they have survived that blast? Were they underground? Did it not hit them? Did it not see them? What was the reason that they survived? And we find out that the reason basically is that Senku's dad had went into space with the space team, and this beam encapsulated Earth, but it didn't go beyond Earth, so they were able to survive. And since they were able to survive, they were able to come back to Earth, and basically we're gonna say that they repopulated it and intermingled and interbred till they had like a whole like colony. And his dad made up these things called the 100 Tales, which is so lit. That just sounds like a really cool name. The 100 Tales sounds like something you pick up in an RPG, which, mind you, side note, this whole story is built around like a world building game. Like every time he acquires something or does something with science, it's like he's got a new item that he can use in his item kit, and it's like you're playing a game along with him, or it's kind of also framed as it's like a game to him, and like he's just playing it because he wants to beat it, which is, that's even a nicer thought when you think about it right there, that at the core essence of it, the reason why maybe Senku wants to do it is there's some altruism to it, that he really wants to have the world back to where it was. And then the other part of me wonders if there's like this selfishness that's deep inside of him that wants to just bring back humanity because that is just what's going to happen and he's going to enjoy that nonetheless. Who knows? We're gonna leave that and park that over to the side. Back to the actual story. So he creates the 100 Tales as like a method of instilling seeds for people to want to get into science or get into certain little things that will help construct a community over the time, which is fascinating. His dad was really smart, even though it seems like Senku was smarter, and I'm so curious about their relationship because it makes no sense to me. They look very similar, I mean hairstyle wise at least, but they're not related by blood at all, which makes no sense to me. Like, I don't understand the correlation or how they met. I would love to know how they met, and it's probably in like the spin-off manga called Byakuya. And his name is mad cool too. Byakuya, the 100 Tales. Anyways, so that's what happens, and that whole community was built on the belief that his father had in his son, that all the stone people, especially his son, was just gonna come back. He was gonna have to find these people, and when he found these people, because he knew that was gonna happen, he built up this community for his son as his last dying wish. And I don't know if he's dead. We don't know if he's dead. I don't know. I mean, everyone got turned to stone, so I'm believing just about everything, even though Senku doesn't believe that it was like magic. He believes that science did it, but whatever it was something that really changed the whole face of Earth. So he finds this place and he has to basically just become like part of it, and eventually finds that all of them are like sort of like, they're not relatives to him, but they're related to his dad, so they're related to him, but he's not related to them, because I think that's a plot hole so he can be with Kohaku in the end, because I shipped them together, and that's all I'm going to say about that point. And I think one of the things also just talking about, I've just been talking about the characters and how it's been flowing, is that overall each part or every little thing that they have to do builds on a character moment. That's why I would say also, if you watch the first season, it can be a bit slow. It's a bit slow in the sense that it takes a bit of time to get to like climaxes or high points. But I think that's also if you believe or fall for what it's going for, and that is like falling in love with science or falling in love with the mundane things that you take for granted every day. Because I find that when I'm watching this show, things like a telephone or things like heat or making fire or even making soda is something that I take for granted because I have that readily available to buy at my store. But if I was thrown into this society, you best believe I would fucking die because I do not have my Boy Scout badges. Yeah, don't have my Boy Scout badges. And that right there is just tells you all you need to know about how it would do. However, even though the pace is slow, I think that each moment builds on each character. I'm very invested in the times when he finds out these things, and I'm being taught a lot along the way. So I feel like I'm getting a lot more value out of it. It's not as action driven. When it is action driven, I find that it is very fun to watch as well. When we get introduced to the spear guy, as we have like our headings up to this war that's going to happen. And it's interesting because the pace of this show is slow, but it's also very fast in terms of like beats. When you think about like where they go and how they do things. In like the first 3 episodes, the main character is killed, and you'll figure out why he's not killed, but we get to like getting to the end of the fight really quickly, which makes it really interesting because then it gets to reset the stakes and allow our character to build back up and reintegrate into the story, and we follow it from there. Now, when you're thinking about it, as it progresses with all the things that he needs to do, it can drag a little bit because each part of a thing takes a long time to get to. And you could argue, I think, that one part is that it's okay to do that because in that time or day and age, time is relative because things take time to make, but we live in a day and age where things move really fast. So the speed of things and the pace of things is really reliant on how well you're able to make things. And that's another good point. He fails. It's beautiful because he's smart, but he's not great at everything, and he does it through trial and error, and he figures things out. The fact that he's able to figure these things out is quite amazing, because normally it would just be like, oh, he's so smart, he could just do this. No, he does something and it messes up. And sometimes there's some stakes. I would say that the stakes aren't enough sometimes. Like, you just know that even though he's failed, it's not one of those things that like, oh, he's failed for good. Like when he makes the medicine for the priestess in the village, you have some feeling that, oh, maybe he fucked up, but maybe he didn't. And I don't know, that could like bring you out in and out. Overall, I feel like the tone of the show is generally upbeat and lighthearted. It doesn't really get dark until maybe like a few times where maybe he's thought to be dead, or I wouldn't even say it gets any darker than that. That's probably the darkest that it would be. I think that it's beautifully animated. I don't see much wrong with it in terms of its animation. You might say that it's not animated enough, but I don't think it needs to be for a lot of the things. It's expressive, and the music does a really good job. I enjoy the fact that the music itself uplifts me in the moments that it wants to uplift me, and other moments when there are certain things that are not. And how the camera angles, even though it's taken for the manga, but like some shots are just put together nicely where we know how Senku's feeling, or like there's a shift in tone because he sets the shift in tone. He's the person who's like the abdicator. I don't know if it's the abdicator, but he's like the initiator of whatever it is that is supposed to happen. I overall like this show because it did one thing for me that school couldn't do: make me interested in science. I took AP Bio, I took physics, I took all that shit, and none of it was fun to do because, one, I didn't have a passion for it, and maybe the people who taught me did have a passion, but they didn't have the ability to take me to a world where everybody was turned to stone and, made me enjoy science because I had to think of everyday applications to it. But, I think that is something that really kept me into the show. And let's talk about the opening and ending. Let's see, opening one was aight. Ending number 1 was fire. If you don't play that on repeat, I don't know what's wrong with you. That is an amazing ending. Like, oh, that gives me like 90s Japanese rap vibes, and it's so good. Opening 2, opening 2 is so fire. Oh gosh, man, it hits like all the beats of like what the second half feels like and how it just impacts you overall. And the last ending is cute. It puts you in your feels a little bit, and it's a good way to calm down after a lot of like action or pacing of the episode, I think. I don't know how other people feel about it. If you want to tell me how you felt about it, tell me in the comment section down below. Overall, I think it's dope because it gets you interested in science. It has little quirks here and there that make it really interesting. It takes the genre of shonen and adds a little bit to it, taking it from the perspective of like a world building game of science and just really wanting to throw you into that world, because I also believe that if you want to make a good shonen, you really have to push home that idea of this is this world and we're being put into it and we should enjoy that thing is to the fullest, because that's what the whole show is about. Now, I don't know much about the manga. I don't know what's going to happen in season 2, but what I do hope happens is that I'm most curious about what's going to happen after the war. Not even really during the war, because I don't see any big revelations coming unless there's something I did not see or catch while I was watching it. So we'll see how that works out, and we'll see what happens post that, because during Anime NYC, I saw the creator, and they talked about being somewhere else in the south of Japan, and I didn't understand why they were there, so we'll probably find out more about that as this gets closer. I think that's my rambling about this. This is going to be called my series Why is Dope, and I'm just going to talk about the things that I liked about the show, a little synopsis, the opening, the ending. I'm going to get it a little bit more structured in the next one. I just wanted to get this out because I've been wanting to get a video out, and I know I didn't get one out last week, so I'm going to hit you guys with 2 videos. Not 1, 2. And, you know, just trying to keep this channel alive. If you liked what I did here today and it wasn't too rambly, or it was too rambly, tell me why in the comment section down below. Hit the like button if you want to see more of this. Even if you don't want to see more of this, I'm going to make it because I want to make it. And subscribe for more if you're new. Yeah, I'm Vandal. Talk to you guys in the next one. Peace. Boy.